call, then walked him down silent streets. The owner of a local guest house is an old friend. Back in the 50s, the place was used by abalone fishermen operating the big trawlers. I confirmed you've misplaced your ID and will be paying cash. Thank you. A lot. The key was waiting for Connor in the front mailbox. The current owner had torn out walls and turned 14 cramped motel rooms into 7 bright and spacious studio apartments. Connor tried to put some heartfelt thanks into his farewell, but the chief just smiled and said, "Do one thing for me." "Sure. When all this comes out, and you know it's bound to, stop by and let me introduce you to my wife and daughter. You'll make their day." Connor said he would, then carried the cop's gently stated warning into the shower. He washed off the journey and fell into bed. The sea breeze filtered in through his open window. Everything should have been perfect, but Chief Wright's final words resonated through the dark night. His secret was bound to come out. Connor resigned himself to another night of tossing and turning and a few frantic dreams. The next thing he knew, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Connor was well accustomed to sleeping whenever the hours were available. For everyone but stars, acting meant 14-hour days or longer. Most actors didn't object because they had so much downtime between shoots. Every good gig was followed by weeks of auditions, meetings, story conferences, classes, and more auditions. But for the past 3.5 years, Connor had been working pretty much nonstop. And then came, as the cop put it, the wedding thing. The studio apartment had a well-appointed kitchenette with a basket that contained filters and 2 packets of ground coffee. Connor was too much of a stickler about what he ate and drank to use either sweetener or powdered milk, but many location shoots offered their lesser actors nothing else, so he had grown accustomed to taking his coffee black. He dressed and extracted the wad of cash from his valise. He had stopped by 2 ATM machines and withdrawn the maximum before running. He entered the motel's office, paid for a week's stay, then asked the manager where he could find an all-day breakfast. The diner was right where the manager said, on the corner of a street that meandered down the gentle slope and ended at the beachfront. Up here, a dozen or so blocks off the water, the town had an air of genteel seediness. The shops were done up nicely, but without the she atmosphere of wealthier towns around L.A. and San Francisco. Many of the structures dated back to the time when Miramar was home to the world's largest abalone fleet. Few buildings sported more than 3 stories, and most had a slightly faded, sea-worn air. Connor feasted on a 3-egg omelet with spinach and avocado, hash browns, and fresh biscuits with honey. Then he sat in the booth, pretended to study the street beyond his window, and wondered how on earth he was going to fill his days. He had never been good at doing nothing. Sitting around and studying his navel was definitely out. Connor had worked his entire life. At 12, he had started as weekend kitchen help in his parents' restaurant. He had loved the work as much as he had hated his parents' constant bickering. Connor had done well enough in his classes to stay under the family radar, and spent every free moment striving to follow his own dream. It was a dream that had brought him to L.A., the dream he had managed to destroy. That was enough to draw him from the booth. Connor had always been most comfortable when moving at full speed. Pushing ahead meant less time to look back. Looking back only brought regret. Connor paid his bill and left the diner and headed down toward the sea. There was a great deal to like about Miramar, starting with its location. California's central coast was a rare haven, isolated by distance and winding hilly roads from the frenetic tension that dominated the urban centers. Miramar was almost exactly midway between L.A. and San Francisco. Both cities had seaside resorts that were closer and filled with people who valued all the things that Connor was fleeing. The result from Miramar was a seaside sanctuary whose residents were quietly satisfied to leave well enough alone. Connor walked and breathed the salt-laced air. Gulls mewed overhead, and somewhere in the distance a buoy's bell clanged as it rocked with the waves. He was glad to find the place was as nice as he remembered. His unsettled restlessness pressed him on.